guys, my name is Michael and welcome to a new GTK tutorial. Today we are going to move on with our signals and I'm going to introduce you two new functions. And the functions which I'm talking about are those functions with them which helps you that you with them find out the number of signals which are available for the object you are working with, and so on. And of course, if you are interested in for a different object which is not the instance you are working with, what I'm talking about you will see in this video. Anyway, the program right now, it is just simple. We have a window, we have a button, nothing special. If I compile it and run it, you'll see nothing special. Now the functions which I'm going to introduce you today, they are called, let me go a little bit back to the signals. Okay, just a second. So the two functions which I'm going to introduce you today, they are called, where are those list IDs? Okay, I think right here. GSignalList ID. It is a function which returns an array and says list the signals by ID that a certain instance or interface type created. In other words, further information about the signal can be acquired through GSignal query. We'll see. This is the second function which I'm going to introduce you. So how you will work with this one? Basically, I'm going to create a function. Let's say static void find object signals, I'm going to call it, and here I'm going to say GTK widget, what I'm doing, GTK widget, let's say object, and of course now let us work with it. So here we need to basically declare this one right here, a GU int array pointer. So GU int, let's say number of signals is what we need. Now we are going to point this function. Let's say the signals ID we needed. So GU int signals ID, I'm going to say, and we need to point it to this function. As you can see, it takes two arguments. The first one is the type and the second one are the ID numbers. So basically it's location to store the number of signal IDs for that type. So in other words, we are going to say, if you don't know about gtype too much, then please go and follow my gtype playlist before you work with this one. If you know, then just move on. Gtype from instance we need, and the object, it will be used, and of course here, because here as you can see it needs a pointer, which means we need to pass its address of the number of signals. And at this point the function is ready for us. We need a for loop for let's say GU int I is equal to 0, and of course the number of signals is the I is less than number of signals, and then we are going to count it. And here inside, let's see, we need to work with the GSignal query the way how the documentation of this function says. And this function is a function which returns nothing. Void takes two arguments. The first one is a signal ID, and the second, it is a structure. Queries the signal system for in-depth information about the specific signal. This function will fill in a user provided structure to hold signal specified information. If an invalid signal ID is passed in, the signal ID member of the GSignal query is 0. All members filled into the GSignal query structure should be considered constant and have to be untouched. take a call, so I'm back now. Anyway, the description says about those two parameters that the first one, the signal ID of the signal to query information for, and the query is a user provided structure that is filled in with constant values upon success. So in other words, if we click here, we see the structure, and this structure contains a lot of information for us, like the signal ID, the signal name, the E-type, signal flags, and so on. So working with this, it will be interesting, which means now in this for loop we need to declare a G signal query structure, and of course query, and now we can call basically this function, no, this one, and we need to pass the signal ID and the query itself. So the signal ID, basically what will be, it will be the signals ID, this one right here. So signals ID, and of course we need the address of the query to save it. Now that we have it, we can print it. G print, let's say %u, and then %s, new line character, and then I plus 1, and of course the the query, sorry. And now we can basically access the query, and see here we have the type, the number of parameters, and so on. You can choose what you need. Me, I'm going to change the signal name. I'm going to take it. Now the last thing which we need, I'm going to make a new line here also. So the last thing which we need to free the signals ID. G free signals ID. Why do we need, and how do we know? Just it's that simple. Let us go back a little bit to the function right here. As you can see, this function returns a GUINT and not a const, and of course here you see you have transfer full, which means free data after the code is done. So you need to free it. Now let me compile it and run it and see what happens if I can compile it. At no time GUINT, yes, of course, because we need the GUINT. Okay, so the first mistake, passing the number, the second one, passing the second our GTK ID, it is, yes, because we don't need a pointer, we need not only, sorry, my mistake, we need a variable and takes a pointer, this function. Okay, next thing, find is not used, which means works fine. Now let me show you something. I'm going to call this function right here. Let's say display signals, and here now we can pass the object, which is the window, for example. And now if we compile it and run it, you see we have some signal. Let me comment out the call of the GTK we just showed, because we don't need to print our widgets and the window. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signals. If we go now to the object hierarchy right here, and we click on the window, GTK window, and then you go to signals, then you will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 signals, and those signals are basically matching. K changes, set focus, activate focus, activate default, and enable debugging. As you can see, everything works fine. The same thing goes if you pass, for example, the button. Now if I'm compiling and run it, we'll see activate, press it, release, click it, enter, and leave, which are fine. If we go now back and choose the GTK button, which should be somewhere here, right here, you see. Now if we click the signals and we compare them, you see we have activate, press it, release it, click it, enter, and leave. As you can see, this is the way how you find the available signals for the instance from the instance. The next video I'm going to show you another way, a better way, which I'm using it to print all signals you need to find out. That being said, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, please subscribe, share with your friends and neighbors, and until next time, see you guys.